ofisi na sasa tunaingia kiwanja ya siasa.
Tumetoka ofisi, sasa tuko kiwanja ya siasa. Sisi bado tuko hapa. Okay, Njoki Shege is our fifth gangster on the show tonight. Sign language interpreter for us. And interesting developments. These days it almost feels like 1 week is the same length as 1 year. So many things have happened. The president meeting young people there at State House, that has caused a whole kerfuffle. Francis, some people saying, why State House? But other people saying, well, why is he meeting young people? And all kinds of people speaking about it. But at the end of the day, the president said something interesting there. Wakati wa siasa umefika, sasa tumetoka ofisini, we are out there. Kind of a different way of putting what he said in Mombasa, that, you know, we were busy working, but now, watu wakutane uwanja.
Yeah, and there are questions as to who organized the meeting. Was it the Ministry of ICT? What was the intention? And so on and so forth. About 3,000 young people were at State House, Nairobi. And it was expected that the president would say some heavy things like he did. Because you see, in such a setup, the excitement is likely to be high because of even the kind of music that was played, the excitement, the exuberance of the young people there. And so I thought the president was likely to say some heavy things like he did. But also coming so soon after the Mombasa meeting, where the president now seemed to come out openly and say he will participate in the campaigns revolving around his succession, whatever he said at State House during that meeting was pretty expected. And for the first time, I heard the president mention by name the word Azimio. Even saying that wakona candidate, wakona muungano, kazi imefanyika. So basically laying the campaign discussion that he will have out there. And for now, for obvious reasons, the presidential flag bearer, and though not formally declared, but the one that you would say is the clear front runner for the Azimio presidential flag bearer is Raila Odinga, the ODM leader. So when the president says we have a candidate, so he cannot be the candidate himself because his second term is running, and he cannot extend it beyond what the Constitution tells us. So unless there is another presidential contender in Azimio, who I highly doubt there is, then basically that was like the clearest indicator of where President Uhuru Kenyatta's support for the 2022 August presidential race is. Not that it was in doubt anyway, but at least he verbalized it. All he has not done now is to openly state Raila Tosha.
Linus, you followed this. Well, I noticed they were playing reggae. I don't know whether that was a coincidence, but you followed this and the reactions that have followed. Is this something you expected the president to do? That is to start coming out in that way that is coming out now, basically, you know, in an overt fashion that, you know, this is the time and wacha watu wakutane huko nje.
I think the president has reached a point of no return. He can't go back on this campaign thing. He started it in Mombasa by responding to what had been attacks from the deputy president and his side about his support. Then he had not really declared it very clearly, his support for Raila Odinga and Azimio. And if you had the reactions, they all pointed out in the direction of saying, well, our attacks on the president have finally made him step out and declare clearly where he stands and say it is Azimio, it is Raila Odinga. So at this point is a point of no return. He really has to just continue. And I want us to just go to Baringo, where the reactions were very, very swift from the team of Deputy President William Ruto and the Kenya Kwanza Alliance. They spoke right the next day. The youth event happened on Friday, and the reactions came fast and swift on Saturday in Baringo.
Serikali ya Kenya iendeshwe na ghost workers huko nyuma ya mzee akitendawili. Si hawa watu wameketi nyuma ya mzee wajitokeze washindane na sisi.
Mnataka serikali ambayo president amestaafu lakini anazidi kuweka remote control kwa yale ambayo yanatendeka. Yani huyu jamaa anataka akiambia Raila ruka, akifinya ruka, Raila anaruka.
Mheshimiwa Rais kwa sababu anaenda retire. Tafadhali tunakusii wewe wachana na mambo ya Azimio. Wachana na Azimio, itakupaka matope.
2013 kwa nini hakuimba yote yawezekana bila Ruto? 2017 kwa nini hakuimba yote yawezekana bila Ruto? Vile Maraka aliondoa uchaguzi yake, kwa nini hakuimba yote yawezekana bila Ruto?
There it is, quite a swift and fiery reaction to the president's endorsement of Azimio La Umoja. And what really comes out is the bitterness within what used to be one Jubilee, because, and you had there Senator Murkomen saying, why didn't he do that in 2013? Why didn't he do that in 2017?
That is loaded. That is quite loaded.
It's very loaded. They're just basically saying, but we were together in 2013 and 2017.
And you needed us.
And you needed us.
Yeah.
So what happened? Because yote yawezekana, for those who may not have the background, started in Uhuru Park in 2002.
Yep.
And with Uhuru Kenyatta in the opposite side of
imagine
the chant.
that?
Because it was at Uhuru Park where on the 14th of October 2002, when the crowd suddenly started saying, yote yawezekana bila Moi. Let's listen to yote yawezekana, the version that came out of the State House last weekend. Well, this would normally pass in Kenya for the formal political divorce anthem, because it was done in 2002 when Moi was completely now divorcing with the LDP wing that just came out of government the previous day, which was 13th of October, and the next day they were saying, yote yawezekana bila Moi. And the issue was same issue of succession. President Moi was placing Uhuru Kenyatta ahead of other candidates that had declared interest in KANU. And so when they went to Uhuru Park in this joint rally where the National Rainbow Coalition was formed, it was a divorce song basically saying, yote yawezekana, we can move ahead without Moi. In this case here, really for anybody looking for any more signs that it is a broken marriage between Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto, he sat here and watched the song, very energetically displayed there by the youth, yote yawezekana bila Ruto. So, and he knew, I'm very sure he knew while he was seated there that that was the guy he was with in 2013 and 2017, at some point wearing similar ties and shirts.
On those very grounds of State House. Actually.
On those very grounds of State House. So, it is over.
Wow.
Yeah, one would say that, you know, Joe...
I see you nodding at that idea of a divorce song.
I mean, certainly. Remember, that song is being sang loudly at State House at an event that the president is hosting. If there was ever any sign, he didn't seem to tell them, no, guys, you know, tone it down, watch your story. So if there ever was a sign that that is happening, this would be it. And like you said, Joe, at the beginning, right now a week seems like, you know, a year in politics and very many things coming up. And I suspect we're going to see a lot more of what we have, all the back and forth. Remember, this meeting with the young people was apparently organized through the Ministry of ICT, correct? Mm-hmm. And it was sort of couched as having young people come and talk about, you know, the issues that they have and look at development projects particularly targeted at the youth. And again, what we've been saying, that the president is going to be couching these or framing these as development agenda at the same time, while you know, pushing through his political agenda. But like I was saying, a lot of things are happening over the next few days and weeks that tell you why we've seen all of this heightened activity. So one, the nominations are coming up in April 2016th to the 21st. That's when they're slated for. And in the lead up to that, people getting their parties in order. In fact, UDA has already announced their nomination dates. It'll be slightly before that deadline, I guess, so that, they can deal with any disputes or fallouts that happen as a result. But also the national delegates conferences that are coming up. NARC is having its NDC tomorrow. Muungano Party as well. ODM and Jubilee should be before the end of the month. All of these are coming up. The One Kenya Alliance.
Kenya
tomorrow as well.
EP on Sunday.
There you go. So look at what's happening over the next few days. That means there's a lot of consolidation, a lot of movement. Things are starting to shape up and frame themselves. In fact, the One Kenya Alliance now sending very clear signals that they want to be part of the Azimio. I know we don't have this clip, but anybody remember less than a year ago, or maybe it was a year ago, when Kalonzo Musyoka of the Wiper Party saying he would be a fool, he would be a stupid man, to back Raila again. But then today we're starting to hear warming up on that. I'd like us to listen to...
you really want to go through the list of... all the things that people have said over the last one.
I have done that. Yeah, I've done that before. It's a whole show. You're absolutely right. So all of these things happening, even while the president and his deputy formalize their divorce and their separation. But Kalonzo now warming up to the Azimio movement.
I think we have that.
It was in Borabu today.
But I can assure you, as Gideon Moya is saying, we are talking to like-minded leaders. And in particular, I've made it clear, we are talking to President Uhuru Kenyatta. You may be thinking he's going away, but he's busy strengthening Jubilee. Okay? I need his vote. And everybody else might need his vote. We will talk. I mean, everybody knows the story of me and Raila Odinga. Who doesn't? 10 political years. Tunashinda, tena hatushindi. 2013. Tunashinda tena hatushindi. We are talking to them. We are talking to everybody. But I can clearly, without any fear or contradiction, tell you, even those talks have not begun. They'll be very serious talks.
So now, referring rather fondly to the history that he has had with Raila Odinga, we've had 10 years together, tunashinda tena hatushindi, very different. But exactly everything we're seeing now, those that need to separate are separating, those that need to coalesce are doing so, those that need to come together. And I think over the next 3 days, by Monday, after all of those NDCs that are happening tomorrow, the day after. In fact, Bomas is actually hosting 2 NDCs tomorrow, yes. NARC and then Muungano. So it just tells you, where we are in our election cycle right now.
Joe, allow me to take you back to the State House meeting and to take it over from where LK left it. You see, the divorce proceedings are happening openly, publicly, and in a very acrimonious manner. When you hear those young people sing that song and chant it excitedly so, and the president is seated there, obviously in agreement with what they're doing or they're saying, reminds you of the rallies that have been addressed by members of parliament, especially from the Mount Kenya region who support the deputy president, and they have said very heavy things against the president in the presence of the deputy president, and there has not been a stop, the same way he didn't stop them. So you look at it like a scenario where in the dispute between the father and the mother, the children have been roped in, and so they will say nasty things depending on where which side they have taken in this whole arrangement. And I would think there is a reason for that. Unlike the succession of 2013, when Mwai Kibaki, president, was exiting, he didn't openly campaign for President Uhuru Kenyatta, the then candidate. But in a subtle way he did, through government machinery, through some key figures in government. It was obvious where Mwai Kibaki's support was in 2013. you wouldn't struggle really to know where his support was, though he never openly came out to do it. The difference now is that President Uhuru Kenyatta seems to be showing his hand openly, directly on who his preferred successor is. And I would say it probably was the unexpected successor, you know, in the realm of things, especially in the Jubilee succession arithmetic. It would have been expected that once he exits, the support would go to his deputy. In fact, they even openly told us, yangu kumi, yako kumi. But once the handshake happened, things seemed to change. And that explains why you see all this acrimony, because what probably was expected to be the order of succession in Jubilee hasn't happened. It is the reverse that is now happening, if I may look at it that way. And that explains why there is this heavy combat. And what we saw at State House and what we saw the following day, I think it will be a continuation of this very, very high-octane kind of politics in the succession race.
And we have seen that already. I mean, there's been quite some heightened activity, especially around the Mount Kenya region, coming on the back of this news that the president will be visiting that region. I think is scheduled to go there next week, if I'm not mistaken. And we've seen what I could only refer to as preemptive strikes by all these MPs you talk about, the allies of the deputy president. They've been on the ground. Even today, they were in Kirinyaga. And
tomorrow they will be in Kiambu.
And their message seems to be very consistent, in a sense, basically muddying the waters before the president goes. So they're saying, you know, yes, we know he's coming, but let him not come here to sell his candidate to us. Let him come to say bye-bye. Essentially trying to say, well, the president is retiring and we're not expecting him to engage in any high-octane politics, as you call it, or campaigning for somebody else. So in a sense, they're priming the region for a certain kind of reaction before the president comes. So raising the stakes that much higher in what is really going to be a dramatic finish to the Uhuru battle, because it has been over the last 4 years since the handshake. So, Linus, I've watched these events, especially in the Mount Kenya region, and I know you have too. Paint for us a picture of this grand finale, because that is what it really has to be.
Central Kenya or Mount Kenya region is clearly coming up as the most hotly contested region. And for the simple reason that we have illustrated here time and again, that unlike in previous elections, Central Kenya used to have very strong presidential candidates. There would normally be one in the presidential race. Here is a scenario where there'll be none this time, at least none of the kind of consequence that was previously associated with candidates from that region. What is also shaping up clearly is what, again, we've said here, that this is a race between William Ruto and Raila Odinga. And you can see the pieces falling in place together slowly. The picture will be even more clear at the end of the week, next week, after the party NDCs. You'll be seeing parties taking positions and leaders declaring their positions clearly. But back to Mount Kenya, you can tell that President Uhuru Kenyatta intends to put everything into this battle in Mount Kenya. We've seen media reports of Sagana 3 loading sometimes next week.
I think Wednesday.
Wednesday next week, yes. And Sagana is known for political deliberations. The last time there was a Sagana, I think Sagana 2, was during the BBI debate, when the Central Kenya region was seen to be going in the opposite direction of the wishes of President Uhuru Kenyatta, that they support the BBI report. And he went there, convened a meeting with leaders of Central Kenya, and took them through. Francis was in attendance, and would actually tell us a little bit more. In Sagana, you are given details in your first language that this is what is in it for you. And that is what happened with BBI. Remember, Sagana 2 came at the backdrop of that famous letter by Senator Irungu Kangata of Murang'a. He had said Central Kenya won't touch that document. Oh, it will fail and all that. We all remember what happened after Sagana 2. The 10 Mount Kenya leaning counties passed the BBI report, some of them, I'm not sure they read it without reading it, basically, because that is how the deliberations will take place. But of course, what we shall wait to see is whether Sagana too will have the same effect in the presidential race that it had on the BBI report. BBI passed in central Kenya because of Sagana, not because of anything, not because of the so-called local factors. But Sagana changed the direction of those things. So for Azimio, I'm sure they're looking at Sagana as a huge moment where a very consequential decision may come in favor of Azimio. Now, what is the DP side doing? The DP side, and you saw that in Kirinyaga today, was saying, no, reduce this return of your tours of Mount Kenya into a Thanksgiving tour. Just say thank you.
A lap of honor also.
Yeah, a lap of honor, and say thank you for electing me twice, and goodbye. What does that tell you in itself? It tells you the DP side is also uncomfortable with President Uhuru Kenyatta's involvement, physical work in the political succession. Not because of anything, but because it can hurt.
Yeah.
Indeed, if there was ever any sign that the president is taking an active role, listen to what Kalonzo Musyoka said in the clip we just played. He said he is going into talks with the president.
The president, yes.
Interesting that he's talking to the president, who is not a candidate, in the August 9 election. One would have imagined he would say, "I'm speaking to Raila Odinga."
No, and he did qualify it actually. And
yes.
He said, he thinks he's going away, but he's strengthening Jubilee. That was a very interesting.
Yeah, so that was absolutely. But just a clear sign that President Uhuru Kenyatta is taking a very active role, and that many of the talks will happen with him, around him, and that he will be steering the ship.
Take us to a break.
So let me take you all to a break. We'll be right back. We have much more to discuss when we return.
Now, you can enjoy the convenience of travel booking with View Travel, Kenya's #1 online travel booking platform. View Travel offers easy and affordable choices for domestic stays, flights, transfers, holidays, activities, and so much more. Whether traveling as a family, chama, church group, friends, or even going for a solo trip, whether a thrill seeker, young professional, or traveling for an occasion, book and plan for trips to unique and unexplored destinations in Kenya. Here is your chance to discover different parts of Kenya like Chalbi, Chulu Hills, Kitmikai, Dragon's Teeth, Aberdares, Maratha Kitchen, and other exotic places in Kenya. This is Kenya. Dream, explore, discover. Visit www.viewtravel.com. Powered by Citizen TV.
Sasa pata smartphone mpya ya Tecno Spark 7 kupitia lipa mdogo mdogo. Weka down payment ya 3,000 alafu malipo ya 50 bob kila siku. Piga *544*5# kuona kama unafaulu kujiunga na mpango wa lipa mdogo mdogo kutoka Safaricom. Mwelekeo ni internet. Usisege nyuma mwelekeo ni internet. Lipa mdogo mdogo. Mwelekeo ni internet.
It's the wild, wild West.
Looking for a place where music meets, a place where energy congregates. Where all the stars in Kenya align, and where Africa and the world reunite. Look no further. 10 over 10 every Friday at 10 p.m. With the wild, wild Willis Raburu. We are the definition of lit.
Jaja, you put the jaja.
I can call myself Chief's friend. Is a friend not someone who knows all your secrets?
Mbona unashindwa kuja huku hivi? Ama unalipwa? Ama ni shughuli hauna?
He did ask me to bring some space food, and I can't do that. So the only thing I could do was make some sandwiches in the shape of rockets.
What signals? Kunivuruta niende Azimio? I think so. No, they are very busy campaigning for Raila, correct?
Yes.
Because none of them is running for president. So I don't even know how you bring their names in, because those are people working for Baba, isn't it? And we wish them well. It is their constitutional right. Yeah. 2 of them wanted to run for president. They are postponed or trashed it. One of them, Sister Governor Ngilu, probably wants to be elected in Kitui County. She has to talk to me. Okay. So we have no problem. Those are watu wa huko nyumbani. But their mandate is also running out. Sendio? So they will be like everybody else. They are obviously jostling for space. As you put it, everybody is trying to do some political realignment. You are going to see big names lose out in a big way as we move towards August 9th, because they make wrong strategic moves. Wanakwisha, mtu anakwisha tu. Yeah. So don't be surprised.
All right, so Kalonzo Musyoka there essentially talking about this fratricide that we've been seeing in Ukambani, where the 3 governors, Governor Alfred Mutua of Machakos, Kivutha Kibwana of Makueni, and of course Charity Ngilu of Kitui, all of them interestingly in Azimio, where Kalonzo is apparently heading, at least they said there are talks in that direction, but at the same time a very vicious fight going on there, even though he says it is it's a very localized thing. And I think there is a very interesting tweet, maybe Yvonne can help me find it.
Yeah,
it's an interesting tweet
from
of someone.
Jakadawa. He asks the following questions. Can you guys help understand the following scenarios? 1, Uhuru actively campaigns for Raila, but Ruto ends up winning. How will that leave a retired Uhuru? And number 2, what is your take on Moses Kuria's statement, and I quote, DP is a poison chalice? He said that, was it last night or?
On JKL?
On JKL?
Well,
I don't think he said that.
No, he didn't say that last night. Yeah.
I would try to answer maybe the first one. It is possible that the president can go out there, campaign for Raila Odinga, and be unsuccessful. It would be a huge loss on his part. But this is something that it looks like he has already committed to do, the consequences notwithstanding. And I would think he's well aware of the outcome. The project can succeed or fail, because it's being termed as a project. I don't know how much of a project it could be, but I would look at it as an experiment more. If it works, it will work. If it fails, it will fail spectacularly. So this is a risk that the president must weigh and weigh carefully. Number 2, the question of I like calling it the central question. It is how many people in the Mount Kenya region, especially in the 10 counties, will listen to the president and make their electoral choices based on what the president tells them. Are there people out there who probably are saying, let's hear what the president has to say? I would say there are. Are there people who will say they will vote for, let's say, the deputy president regardless of what the president tells them? I would say yes, there are. So it's a question of how many people the president can convince to vote for Raila Odinga vis-a-vis how many people will vote for William Ruto regardless of what the president tells them.
And that's an interesting one, because some people here have said that it is actually a contest between Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto in the Mount Kenya region, at least, as opposed to maybe even between the Deputy President and Raila Odinga. Linus, is that an assertion that would find a basis in the politics that we are seeing right now?
Absolutely. This is a multifaceted struggle going on. There is one race between William Ruto and President Uhuru Kenyatta, and there's another race now between William Ruto and Raila Odinga. And we should remember that one thing that the DP has always done is to combine both from the very beginning, and that's where the name Project comes from. Before Project, there was Dynasty. Basically put these guys together. They come from famous families, the Kenyatta family and the Odinga family. They are sitting together. Put them together first. So if there's one thing that has been consistent is the DP has defined Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga as campmates. That's one camp that is in his opposite. You remember the National Prayer Breakfast where he spoke and said, you know, as a pastor, a child of nobody who now dines with the... He separated himself from the rest. But back to Jakadawa's question, and which Francis has very ably answered, there is a precedent to a situation where the sitting president supports a particular candidate and then the outcome goes against their way. And that was in 2002. President Daniel Arap Moi supported Uhuru Kenyatta over Mwai Kibaki. And Uhuru Kenyatta was called a project for the simple reason that his coming to the race was, everything about it was really choreographed. From his from his appointment first as chairman of KTB.
KTB, yes.
And then from KTB, he's nominated to Parliament with Makto being told to give the space. He's nominated to Parliament, and then a few days later, he's appointed Minister for Local Government, and then from there, he moves on to become the candidate. So that is what a project looks like. I always find it difficult to appreciate this argument that Raila Odinga is a project, considering the number of times he has run for president. In fact, in the presidential race, Raila Odinga is more of a monument than a project. You will always find him in the ballot for the last 4 races. How do you turn that into a project just because now he's getting the support of a base that never used to support him? Now, in terms of the outcome, Jakadawa, Daniel Arap Moi accepted the outcome of the election. Before the results came out, we all trooped to the Langata barracks for the farewell ceremony that he conducted with the military. A very solemn event, very, very interesting indeed, and he would come there, do the final salute, the military, the Kenya Army gave him the farewell, and I remember the gift he was given was a tractor. That now you're done with the presidency, you'll go to farming. If the election goes against Uhuru Kenyatta, I believe this is the same route that he has to follow as well.
He doesn't have a choice, actually.
He doesn't have a choice. But down to, Francis, the voting patterns and whether President Uhuru Kenyatta will convince part or any of Central Kenya to go his way. Kenyan politics is regional. That is the base of our politics. And I'm looking at the 2002 voting patterns, and I want to quickly run through the ethnic voting patterns. Daniel Arap Moi, the sitting president, supported Uhuru Kenyatta. Moi came from the Kalenjin community. The Kalenjin community gave 67% of their vote to Uhuru Kenyatta against Mwai Kibaki's. In the Kikuyu region, the vote was split. Mwai Kibaki got a whole 68%, and Uhuru got 23%, mainly from
Kiambu,
Mushadha and Kiambu.
And Banana.
Banana areas.
Yes. And when you look at Meru, Kibaki would sweep the Meru vote by 68%. Coast, 65% went to Mwai Kibaki. In the among the Maasai, 50% went to Uhuru and 50% went to Kibaki. And then the Somalis, 64% voted for Uhuru Kenyatta. So these are the vote, and the Luhya community, that's where the battle is currently. 77% voted for
Mwai Kibaki.
Mwai Kibaki, and less than 20% voted for Uhuru. And then there was a small number 3 that was delivered by the Kisii community to Nyachai. Nyachai won in the Kisii region of Nyanza, basically reducing the Kibaki majority in Nyanza. So our voting patterns are ethnic. If you look at the 2013 and 2017 elections, the Jubilee base was made up of Rift Valley and Mount Kenya region. The 2 regions where now this race appears to be shaping up. When you look at how the William Ruto, Raila Odinga campaigns are focused, now all the attention is on the big Central Kenya bloc. Why do they do this? Because they know voting patterns are regional.
And at the end of the day, it's going to be interesting to watch how this plays out. I mean, because like you said at the beginning, for the first time, since the return of multipartyism, we do not have a formidable candidate, at least not at this point, and I don't expect that there will be by the time we are going for the nominations. So we have a situation where the Mount Kenya region does not quite have what we typically call in this country the kingpin. And there is some argument that perhaps Uhuru Kenyatta will be going to say, well, there's going to be a negotiation, people sitting around the table, who is going to sit there for you. And that, I don't know how much traction that would have, but in Kenyan politics, it tends to be an issue where people will be saying, when people are finally seated and the cow has been slaughtered in our parlance and people are cutting each piece, who's going to be speaking for you? That is a very traditional argument that politicians make, and it will be extremely interesting to see how that plays out in this very confused political dispensation where nothing really looks like what it appears to be, Yvonne.
That's exactly right. And I think this was something we were even saying before the break about what we've seen happening over the last couple of days, that this is now seemingly, at least for this moment, between President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy, William Ruto. Both of them doing 2 things. One, fighting for the legacy of their administration over the last, 9 years?
Almost 9.
Surely it's now almost 10. Yeah, we've got like five months to the August election. Could this end up being a battle between the president and his deputy, with all of these others being proxies, like Raila Odinga? And in that battle, all of them claiming credit for all the good things they claim has happened. Allow me to take this table around, in a slightly different tangent for a moment, because in that fight for a legacy, for something positive, none of them taking responsibility for what didn't happen. I think last week around this table, we listed what President Uhuru Kenyatta's tangent will be over the next couple of months, which is, finishing his projects and finishing them in a hurry. While we look at all of these political formations, I'd like us to not forget that there's something that is happening very quick, a rush to finish all of these flagship projects. We've mentioned that before. And this is something I also need to flag right now. We're going into a budgetary process. The Budget and Appropriations Committee, while the presentation of the budget policy statement has actually complained about this rush to complete the flagship projects under the Big Four agenda, saying it will force us to borrow beyond our 9 trillion shillings ceiling. Our debt now is at 8.6 trillion. Our ceiling is at 9 trillion. And yet, for this new budget, we have a deficit of 1 trillion. With just a window of about 400 billion to borrow. You can see where we're going with this. Revenue targets will no doubt be missed in the coming election, or rather the upcoming financial year. So just as they clamor for all of this good projects, and as you see the president very quickly rush it, in fact, I think tomorrow the Transport Ministry will be doing an inspection of the Eastern Bypass, and they'll be giving us an update on the Nairobi Expressway, which which is, currently being done very fast. Even as we follow all of the political formations, what's happening here, who's going to vote in which way, I think let's also just maintain a side eye on what is going to happen. And these are things that will affect us 5 months from now, 5 years from now, a year from now, and will certainly be the burden of whoever takes over, after the August 9 election. So just to keep our eye on some of these things that happen while we're in the height of, political rhetoric and all of this back and forth and formations, breakup, divorce, new marriages and new relationships, just let's keep our eye on the economy.
Interesting, and I think Moses Kuria alluded to it last night in his interview with Jeff Koinange, and we will speak about Moses Kuria in just a minute. But a friend of mine was saying that, what we are seeing now is quite interesting because the Deputy President has said that Bila Yeye, they would not have been, essentially saying that in some ways he made Uhuru Kenyatta president, and that the president will be going out there to test that theory. Is it true that he made him president? Because if he succeeds, as Jakadawa was asking, without the president's support, actually in spite of the president's opposition, then he will probably be saying, yes, I made you president. That is why actually I overcame this. Yeah. If the president is able to overcome whatever has been happening, and then he'll be saying, you know what, even without you, perhaps would have got another partner. Interesting insights there. But let's go to Moses Kuria. Yesterday, speaking on Jeff Koinange, he didn't come out. There's a question Jeff kept asking in several ways. Where do you stand? Right now, people want to know, is it Kenya Kwanza? Is it Azimio? And he said rather interesting things about both formations. I liked how he talked about everything in extremely philosophical terms. He was talking about the parties that eventually joined William Ruto in Kenya Kwanza, ANC and Ford Kenya, because he said his party, Chama cha Kazi, and the others, the Service Party and all of those things, differed with the DP on that question of coalitions, because the DP apparently said the UDA is a big mass movement that everybody needs to join, and so they parted ways on that. And I think that is something that still intrigues him to date. He said how the other parties were able to come in. But on the other side also, he generally believes that what we are seeing now, that problem is largely the doing of the president. He went about everything without communicating with Jubilee members and all of that. So Moses Kuria has been in Dubai for treatment. Linus is supposed to come back after setting the stage in that very dramatic fashion where people actually don't know where he falls. And then he says, I'm inviting all of you to Thika for what he's calling a Thanksgiving service.
Yes, and Moses Kuria has clearly been a politician with the capacity to rabble-rouse. He's been able to actually cause quite some either uproar or things like that. If we remember, and correct me, Francis, Moses Kuria is now on his third party. If you start with Jubilee, and then there was PEP, and now there is the CCK. And he's been able to actually start shaping the scene as his own man. And there's something that gives it quite some significance. Moses Kuria is a member of parliament for Gatundu South, the home constituency of President Uhuru Kenyatta. And he has not been able to give a clear indication as to where he stands when it comes to the fight between, or the differences between President Uhuru Kenyatta and Deputy President William Ruto. One of the reasons could be the fact that politically he was close to both. Moses Kuria was actually quite an effective team member in the 2013, actually 2012-2013 shaping of the Jubilee URP-TNA alliance. Remember, Moses Kuria was associated with TNA, the National Alliance, and then after that, now this Jubilee alliance was worked on. Now, Saturday, we expect Saturday to be quite a big show, because if you look at his guest list is basically try to invite everybody across the political divide, further sending us into a more clouded space again as to where he stands. But I think it's going to be a matter of weeks because, as we say, this race is really between William Ruto and Raila Odinga, and Moses Kuria will have to pick a side.
I think it's more of a question of creating your own space in this race. Because even as you join whichever camp you would prefer, be it the Kenya Kwanza team or the Azimio team, what are your terms of joining that team? Because one of the contentions that I've had Moses have, the same with Kiunjuri, the same with Mother Karua of NAK Kenya, has been the question of not folding their parties, but whichever side they will support, they also run their parties, and particularly in the parliamentary and civic seats, the elections that will be conducted in the constituencies and in the wards. And I think that is pertinent because every leader realizes that your fallback plan in the event the coalition does not work either way is the number of MPs that you have, the number of MCAs that you have, the number of governors that you have. Look, the reason why Moses Wetangula today is a significant player in this game is because of the number of MPs that his party, Ford Kenya, has. Look at the same case for ANC leader Musalia Mudavadi. The discussion around why he's in the table, so to say, is because of the number of MPs that he has, and that gives him political clout. I would think this is the same thing for Moses, it's the same thing for Karua, it's the same thing for Kiunjuri, it's the same thing for Justin Muturi. I mean, people are still asking who will be the chief guest during his NDC on Sunday. He told us it is melting the ice, you know. I don't know what is this relationship between weather and climatic situations and these NDCs. So I would think, to answer what Joe is asking, it's more of a question of creating your own space. So that in the scheme of things, when people sit around the table, so to say, you can say, I have come with this number of MPs, I have come with this number of MCAs. And because there's a general agreement, I don't know how to put it, that the future is coalitions. So in that coalition, people will ask you, what do you bring?
And Francis, there's something else you illustrate right there, and that is the political fragmentation of the political party space in central Kenya. Never before since 1992, since the advent of multi-party politics, has central Kenya had so many political parties being headed by different leaders. Because between 92 and basically 2002, there were two or three dominant forces there. The Democratic Party of Mwai Kibaki, Ford Asili of Kenneth Stanley Njino Matiba, and then, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, it was almost as if that is really, everything else was
played around that, yeah. Then the in and out of Kanu in Kiambu, a bit of Ford people when it came to former Minister John Michuki. The parties were not this many. Right now, you look at the list that Francis has mentioned. Moses Kuria has a party. The governor of
party of Mwangi wa Iria.
Mwangi wa Iria is a party.
Ubuntu.
Jibebe. Yes. Jibebe is a party. All these are from actually key individuals in central Kenya politics, and this also points to this scenario where there is no single kingpin, like you call them, Joe, in central Kenya, around which the larger community now revolves around. So there's a bit of fishing going on. You bring your party and let's see who will grow out of this.
And don't forget, Joe, the president is also trying to revive the Jubilee Party. Actually, whatever he has said during those meetings, you'll see a build-up when he met MPs for that Jubilee PG, then when he went to Mombasa, the discussion around the youth meeting. And I've seen a few days later, several MPs have been holding rallies in various places, and you start seeing the red color of Jubilee. So those many parties in the mountain is also a very interesting political discussion.
And that, I think it stems from a number of things. We've seen a general suspicion, a growing suspicion towards this idea of lumping everybody into one big party. And this comes from the experience of the Jubilee Party that, you know, they had TNA, URP, and then they had a number of smaller parties that came together, 14 they
14
told us.
of them, yeah.
And they folded up and joined Jubilee, became one big Jubilee. And then you see what happened in there, and now everybody is scattered. And so nobody wants to dissolve their party. Anybody telling you to dissolve your party right now, that conversation is likely to be very difficult. So we are not likely to see anybody dissolving anything to join the next guy. And that is an interesting thing. But thinking about Moses Kuria, he said a couple of interesting things last night. Whereas he was very non-committal, as we say in this industry, on where he would go, if at all, between, you know, Azimio and Kenya Kwanza, he sounded rather more clear about the issues that would be important to the region in his view. And he talked about things that we've heard before, things like equal representation, equal distribution of resources. Think here about one man, one vote, one shilling. Some of the things that we have seen several leaders from Mount Kenya pushing for over the years. It was partly being addressed by BBI, but then of course BBI became part of another whole political discussion. But there are things that members of parliament from that region have pushed in different ways. Remember, even when there was that discussion about the division of revenue and all of that in the Senate.
Revenue sharing formula in the Senate.
Revenue sharing, and that was part of the conversation. And Moses Kuria, to credit to him, he has been extremely consistent on that issue, you know, saying how can you have 8 billion shillings going to Kiambu County and then some other counties that have far fewer people actually getting more money. And that is something we are going to see come into play as the various candidates now enter the fray, because those are things that I think Moses Kuria and the like will be telling people on the ground. And I think increasingly we will see, whether it's Kenya Kwanza or Azimio, trying to speak to that space that, look, when we come in, this is how we're going to address some of the feelings that you've been having. And then they have to balance that with what the other regions might feel. So we will see some interesting conversations happening within that space. And Linus, you look like you want to say something more on that.
Maybe not, although for a fact, Moses Kuria has been one of the people who have complained longest about what they consider a road deal for Mount Kenya region. I don't know how many Kenyans would agree with that, though, that Mount Kenya got a road deal when it comes to development under President Uhuru Kenyatta. And I think his earliest fights, remember the origin of Tangatanga and Kieleweke. Tangatanga was basically telling the people of Central Kenya that, oh, Uhuru has not done much, he has not given you the development projects that you ought to have. And the president was actually pushed to a corner when it came to his development record in Central Kenya. But is it true that, is it a fact that Mount Kenya region has gotten a road deal under President Uhuru Kenyatta's term? I don't know of any other region that has super highways heading in their direction. And there is a highway going to Nyeri from Kenol, dual carriage.
Marwa, yeah.
By my geography, it is in Central Kenya. And in physical terms, that doesn't look like a road deal.
Now, we need to move to the final thing here. I mean, we've seen quite some row about cows over the last couple of days. The DP speaking in Nyeri, I think it was, made a remark about the Democratic Republic of Congo. And I think we have that soundbite. We can play it. Yeah, so the deputy president, he was speaking. They started all these things that they are talking about meeting delegations, trying to consolidate their economic agenda for each of the regions. And I think he was basically talking about...
He was actually explaining to them the bottom-up economic model in Nyeri, if I'm not wrong.
And the economic opportunities that are there in the region, including places like DRC. And then I think we can play that.
Yeah, but, Joe, before the bite is played,
I don't know if we'll wait for it until the cows come home. Okay, let's keep going.
Guys, you'll be careful about cows here.
I know.
But that's fine.
We're saying nice things about them.
I wouldn't want any beef with Linas on.
Wow.
Anyway.
Take the bull by the horn.
Yeah, I'm looking at it this way. I think it was the discussion was spot on, you know, about the economic opportunities around for milk farmers, for dairy farmers and tea farmers and avocado farmers. The discussion was right. I would think maybe what was said in jest, you know, as a joke, turned into a negative, you know, sentiment. But I think the discussion was spot on, as in terms of explaining to people what are the economic activities they are in and what are the opportunities there and how to change, you know, the economic opportunities for the farmers out there. But it goes to show that whatever one says, especially in this political kind of an environment, must be taken very, very seriously, because there's a possibility that even that which is said as a joke can be twisted around in this political environment, can be misconstrued, can be misinterpreted. And this is a scenario where anything politicians say in this season, because of the fractures kind of a scenario that we have, more so the presidential succession race, whatever Raila Odinga will say, whatever William Ruto will say, whatever Kalonzo will say, whatever Musalia will say, will be interpreted based on where they are in this political succession.
And also, Yvonne, this just going to show a couple of things. One, the fact that what we do here is not just our business. I mean, there is a whole international spotlight that right now is focusing on Kenya, and especially the top candidates, because each country in the region, certainly, and of course out there, is wondering what will happen to us if Raila Odinga becomes president? What happens to us if William Ruto becomes president? And so therefore, to that extent, they are listening and watching every little step that these people make, because then they are trying to extrapolate, because they've never seen them as president. So they are trying to extrapolate, how will this person be as a president? And I think that is one reason why the presidential aspirants, because that's what they are right now, need to bear in mind that we are being watched out there. The things that we say, you see, right now, whatever he said, whatever he meant, there is what you say and then what people hear you to be saying. And I think that is where the problem is. And in diplomacy, one of the most important things is how things are said. You know, in diplomacy, someone can, you know, you are very silly, but they will say it in a totally different, you know, I wouldn't quite say it that way. But they've actually told you that, you know, what you are saying perhaps doesn't make a lot of sense. So in diplomacy, what you say is, how you say what you say is just as important, if not more so, as what you actually say. And that is why I think this thing has created the kind of diplomatic awkward diplomatic situation that it has, because of the sensitivities around diplomatic relations when you're talking about a foreign country, and especially now in the age of social media where things go viral within 5 minutes and all that, and people will not bother, or they will not know the context in which something was said. And as Francis was saying, it doesn't help that this has happened during the political season. And finally, I think that it helps for each of these candidates when they'll become candidates, but they're already in there, to carefully think about international relations. You know, what message are you sending out there deliberately to the
or
potential
otherwise,
investors,
or unintentionally,
or intentionally? I mean, what are you saying that assures those people that whoever it is that takes over, if it is me, if it's the next guy, and that is something that even as we do our local politics here, is extremely important. But as Francis says, obviously, I am not too sure that the DP was out there trying to denigrate the DRC. It is more about perhaps not giving careful thought.
And context.
And context.
And let's also not forget, who, the person of Dr. William Ruto is. He is, one, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, and two, leading one of the major political formations and could...
Has a chance at least.
Who has a chance at least of being president in August. But let me just contextualize as to why this might have been a particularly sticky point. So the DRC is, well on its way. I think we've got just one step left for the DRC to join the East African community. And there's been a lot of diplomacy between the two nations and effort, particularly on Kenya's side. In fact, the president was visited in April last year when they signed 3 trade agreements on a number of issues like trade and security and infrastructure. Many Kenyan firms have either expressed interest in the DRC or are working there. You've got Jubilee Insurance Equity Bank, KCB, and let me just put some numbers here. The DRC has a population of 100 million. Just about 4% have bank accounts. They produce 70% of the world's cobalt, 50% of the world's copper. And between Kenya and the DRC, Kenya exports to DRC in the year 2020, exports worth 14.2 billion. The imports from DRC into Kenya were about, 2.7 billion. Jumbojet, the first low-cost carrier to actually venture into this route, flying to Goma 3 times a week. Kenya is in fact opening other consulates. Is it in Goma and Lubumbashi? So you can see there's quite a bit that's happening between Kenya and the DRC.
And Kenya
has been at the forefront in pushing for their entrance.
The section of DRC into
Absolutely.
DRC.
So you can understand why, the DRC would be looking to whatever's happening in Kenya and the political scene very keenly. That said, the apology was welcome. I saw a couple of tweets also by those allied to the deputy president that may have fanned the flames a little bit. I think telling, was it the senator, from the DRC, relax, it's fine. But hopeful to see that perhaps that a quick and simple apology, yes. Although it came later, which is, I suppose a good thing. But this is not just a lesson to the Kenya Kwanza Alliance, but to others as well, as to the significance that Kenya has. And by the way, it's not just those in the East African community who are watching, but, those around the world as well. Kenya is extremely strategic.
We saw the diplomats, and I think we saw the diplomats basically seeking an assurance from the government, whether this election will be done properly, whether the IEBC is ready, and I do think, if I'm not mistaken, that we had C.S. Matiang'i was meeting
basically
envoys, talking to the international community about Kenya's preparedness to deal with an election and the transition.
We have given assurances to our partners that as a country we are ready to proceed and facilitate the IEBC to conduct elections. The agencies that have got the constitutional mandate to facilitate the IEBC are here. As for the conduct of the general elections, that is the matter of the IEBC because it's an independent constitutional institution. But we have given assurances that we will do our part and we will continue to ensure that the country remains peaceful and stable and is prepared effectively for the transition.
Linus, that international spotlight, a big one, is on us. And just as we were mentioning a short while ago, the DRC is not left behind.
Look, internationally, Kenya is very well regarded, and this is way through down to our history from 1963 coming up this way. A hub of international business. There was a time, if you remember, Joe, in our primary school years, you'll hear President Moi saying this is the island of peace. Mm-hmm. And it literally was, because Somalia was at war, Ethiopia was at war, Uganda had civil war. The only other peaceful nation was Tanzania, basically. So we considered ourselves a very, very important nation. And even through the period of the Cold War, this was a melting pot of those ideological differences. The Americans played big here, the Russians played big here. So we've been important in the bigger scheme of things when it comes to international relations. And that is why you see every election year, the international community also takes great interest in how we conduct ourselves. Will it be peaceful? Will it be stable? Will it be a transition that will not destabilize either trade or international relations and travel and things like that? We are considered that important. But then, something has been changing, unfortunately, Joe and colleagues, and that is our stature internationally has been on the decline. We should not forget that only until recently, we were the big boys in the region negotiating peace in South Sudan, right through to the transition to independence and even the formation of a new government. The Somali government, transitional government, the first transitional government, was formed here in Nairobi. Now, this is adult stuff. This is stuff that has to resonate with the international community that plays in the big league of diplomacy. We used to be that. This is why what happened in Nyeri, and I want us to play that clip, this is why it shocked some people. Let's just listen to the Deputy President in Nyeri.
The Deputy President
talking
about the cows and DRC.
The cows in Congo. Yeah.
Hii mambo ya maziwa, if we double the production of milk and it doesn't require rocket science, na tuuze, hata tuwache kuuza nyingi, tukiuza hata 3 billion liters, tukiuza 3 billion liters, na tuko na soko kuanzia hapa DRC, hawa watu wako na 90 million people, hawana ng'ombe moja. Hii DRC ni watu ya kuimba hii. Hii watu ya sijana kwenda Gongoma nani hawa wanaimba. Na wanafunga suruali wanafungia hapa. Hiyo watu tuwauzie maziwa.
There are two problems there, Francis, that I could pick. The first one is obviously the lack of situational awareness on the part of the Deputy President. First of all, your position, reference to a friendly other nation, and then the diplomatic protocols that are involved when it comes to such references. Once you refer to another nation like DRC, a friendly nation like DRC, then it had better not be in the terms he was referring to. That's one. The second problem is this is consistent with the public campaigns language of the Deputy President. He tends to do the mchongoano thing, and I'll give a little list there. He consistently calls Raila Odinga kitendawili. In fact, sometimes it's mzee wa kitendawili. Now these days, mzee is going, and you'll hear kitendawili. Kitendawili alikuwa hapa. And then when you go to Atwoli,
mzee wa nyororo.
Ule mzee amevaa nyororo kwa shingo.
Mtu wa nyororo.
Mzee wa nyororo. And then basically the mchongoano thing. And now he says, watu wa DRC, wala wanaimba, wanakufunga trouser hapa. You know that's mchongoano. And in school, primary school debates, where politicians are supposedly to be born, you are told about referring to your opponent as my worthy opponent. What happened to that little culture of worthy opponent, where you can refer to people respectively? Now, this time, the mchongoano language of the DP has crossed the boundary.
Imevuka mipaka.
Imevuka mipaka, it has referred to DRC. Who knows what next? Because, I mean, you become president in Kenya. One of the things that happens with the Kenyan presidency is you will have a good reception in Buckingham Palace to meet the Queen. You don't expect the DP to come here and say, yule mama wa kuvurutwa na farasi, you know, referring to obviously the courage that normally they do at the Buckingham Palace receptions, or when you go to the US. So this is something that the DP really needs to start checking, because his language comes across as condescending, comes across as disrespectful, comes across as demeaning of his subjects before he actually goes ahead to deal with them. Because he's an idiot like myself, so I know what he means when he says wale watu wa kuimba. Kuimba basically is suggesting laziness also, that you don't work, you can't use your hands, you just sing. And then when you talk of where the trouser is, it even further demeans the person. So let's not get it wrong. He meant to actually place the Congolese there. Hawana ng'ombe, they just sing around, the tight trousers up there. It's a very demeaning thing. You see, words don't sometimes mean what they say. I mean, you know of Kenyans saying, my friend nitakukata. If he says, my friend nakukata, then friend no longer means anything. It means something completely different. But I want to point out a second problem. That was one problem in Nyeri. There is a second problem, and I want to commend my friend Lawyer Ogada. He's pointed it out as a problem in our handling of diplomatic issues. Yesterday, there was a statement by
the ambassador in Congo.
In Congo. This is not how diplomacy works. Diplomatic protests are done in three ways. You either do a note verbal, or an aid memoir. Those three. And they're normally quiet. They're not press statements. They're not out here with pictures and all that. Remember, the other day we had a problem with Tanzania. One of it was caused by Jamila, who is not here. President Magufuli was alive. And our High Commissioner in Dar es Salaam had actually had to appear in the High Commission, sorry, in the Foreign Affairs Ministry in Dar es Salaam. Now, that must have been either through a note or an aid memoir, where, you know, you don't have a press statement. It's diplomatic. It's the world, it's the highest peak of civility. Now, when you see this DRC, our DRC ambassador releasing a press statement.
Dr. George Masafu.
Dr. George Masafu. What is this? This is pure politics. Where now you join and say, make it look as bad, more bad than it should be. So that is why you see the press statements, also reactions saying, you know, DP Ruto has done this. But involving diplomatic channels in this way is also wrong. We need to point out that. But it also just adds to this whole statement that we are not doing as well in diplomacy as we used to do under President Moi and Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. We are dumping down. There should be no way a senior government official makes reference to another nation the way the DP did, but there should also be no way an ambassador is used the way Ambassador Masafu was used yesterday.
Let me take it right from where LK leaves it. I'm looking at that statement, paragraph 1. Attention has been drawn to the Kenyan embassy in Kinshasa regarding remarks of DRC's agriculture sector attributed to Mr. William Ruto whilst on the political campaigns trail in Kenya. You see, this is Kenya's ambassador to DRC, Dr. George Masafu, ambassador, referring to the deputy president, his boss, as Mr. Number one, even without reference to his position in government or anything like that. But I think this is part of, do I call it politicization of the public service? Yep. We've seen cabinet secretaries directly, you know, tackle the deputy president in a manner that ordinarily you wouldn't expect. So I think even as the succession race hots up, I think there's also a question about where are the public servants in this? What is their role in this succession? Who do they owe their allegiance to? The government, the president, the deputy president, or who do they owe their allegiance to? Because what the ambassador did here was nothing short of pure politics. And you could tell how and why he did it.
It is that silly season, and I think, Yvonne, we need to
take this home.
Exactly.
As Jamila would say. Who do we begin with today? We start with the kicker. He kicks off the final word.
Kick it away.
Right. apologies for that little mix-up. On my kicker tonight, the Jubilee party officers had an exciting morning this week. There was a guest, an aspiring party member, and an election aspirant. And for Jubilee officials in Nakuru, it was love at first sight. If you last heard about her in some criminal case in court, then please meet the latest aspiring member of the governing party Jubilee and a potential next parliamentary woman representative for the county of Nakuru, Anne Wambere Ngirita.
Nimeamua kusimama kama women rep Nakuru County kwa sababu nimekuwa nikiangalia, naona vile wanawake wenzangu wanateseka na youths. Mimi mwenyewe ni youth, kwa hivyo najua yale mambo watu wamekuwa wakipitia, na nimekuwa nikisaidia wengine huku chini ya maji. Lakini saa hii nimejitokelezea na chama cha Jubilee. Nilikuwa nimepotea out of influence, lakini saa hii nimerudi, niko Jubilee ndani.
Now, if you last heard of her taking a plea for receiving some 59 million Kenya shillings in some corruption case, then you need to pay attention. Anne Wambere Ngirita has a vision for this country. She says she wants to help women and children. But seemingly, someone somewhere was not amused with the events at the Nakuru Jubilee offices. And quickly, there was a change of mind about welcoming Anne Ngirita to the Jubilee party.
Important to know that Jubilee is a very clean party, and we don't want to have aspirants who have not been cleared. We are going to ensure that no candidate goes through as an aspirant without proper documentation.
A change of mind, belated perhaps. You remember what they say about first impressions. Anyway, fellow Kenyans, hands off Anne Wambere Ngirita. Leave the kid alone and let us spare each other the hypocrisy of casting stones, ostensibly in the name of integrity. Let us face the fact that some of the most successful political careers in this country are founded in financial scandals and corrupt deals. Scandals and corruption cases have launched some political careers, and the sad truth is there are Kenyans who really don't care about corruption. So, why should it matter that Anne Ngirita has a case to answer relating to the 9 billion National Youth Service NYS scandal? Why her? What about everyone else associated with the 2 mega scandals at the NYS? Isn't this the same NYS where a hairdresser admitted to ferrying irregularly acquired public funds in sacks, magunia in Swahili? Isn't this the same NYS where, despite evidence of wrongdoing, political responsibility became impossible? Has NYS ever been a serious matter enough to halt a launch of any political career? Let us spare Anne Ngirita the hypocrisy. I say we spare her the hypocrisy because we do not have a single precedent of a financial scandal or corruption case ruining any political career, whether at the beginning of it or the continuation of it. How do we turn away Anne Ngirita in a country where corruption convicts walk free on bond and are audacious enough to want to travel out of the country on parliamentary business? How and why do we want to stop Anne Ngirita when no one has ever been held accountable for the cloudy matter around the 24.6 billion laptop tender? How do you stop Ngirita when no one has ever been held responsible for the theft of more than 5 billion shillings in an NYS-style mega corruption scandal at the Ministry of Health headquarters, Afia House? If it's about diversion of funds, double payments for goods, and manipulation of the government's integrated financial management system, IFMIS, who else has ever been turned away like Ngirita? Then there is the IEBC chicken get 50 million shilling bribes, Geothermal Development Company, GDC, tendering irregularities, the Ruaraka Land Ministry of Education payout, the NSSF 5 billion shillings tender, mobile clinics imported at 1.4 million shillings and sold to government at 10 million shillings, private jets at 100 million shillings. The list is endless, and you want to stop Anne Ngirita for receiving 59 million shillings after supplying nothing. And what if we ever tried that much hype lifestyle audit of state and public officials, including politicians? Anne Ngirita would not only be cleared to run for Nakuru woman representative in parliament, she would also be declared a saint ahead of party nominations. So let us cut that hypocrisy. Scandals and corruption scandals have always founded political careers in Kenya, some of them very successful political careers. Onward Ngirita, that is my kicker.
Very well. On Tuesday this week, the Kenya Editors Guild held one of its press clubs and invited key players in the electoral process for deliberations on the state of preparedness as the general election beckons. A commendable move that is also timely, since the media is an integral part of the electoral cycle, with the cardinal duty of educating the masses, informing the nation on the choices at the ballot, as well as shedding light on what is transpiring before, during, and after the general election. However, what caught my attention was a statement by Joyce Ekwam, an educator at the electoral body IEBC. She spoke deeply and intensely about the just concluded second phase of the enhanced mass voter registration that netted 1 million new voters in the month-long exercise. First phase of the voter registration drive resulted in 1.5 million new entrants in the national roll of voters. That is a total of about 2.5 million out of a target of 6 million national identity card holding citizens who were not registered as voters. A bulk majority of the targeted eligible voters are between the age of 18 and 34. The youth. Article 260 of the Constitution defines the youth as the collectivity of all individuals in the Republic who have attained the age of 18 years but have not attained the age of 35 years. Ekwam had this to say about the reasons listed by the youth for shunning the voter registration drive. The youth have spoken. They are facing a lot of challenges, lack of jobs, and the youth are saying their issues have to be addressed first before they participate in the elections. End of quote. The young people have a point, but maybe not quite. We must distinguish between reasons and excuses. Are the challenges they cite, like lack of jobs, legitimate? Yes, they are. Do they have a valid reason to complain? Most definitely. But will their issues be resolved if they keep off the electoral process? Of course not. By staying away from the electoral process, the country's youth are simply granting a walkover to the very same people they accuse of neglecting them. They are simply playing into the hands of their tormentors, more like cutting their noses to spite their faces. The 2017 voter register had 19.6 million citizens. With the first and second phases of enhanced voter registration drives concluded, the voter register numbers stand at about 22.1 million. After audit and cleanup of the register, deleting names of the deceased, and eliminating cases of multiple registration, the voter register will largely remain as it was in 2017, maybe with a slight variation. I would place the final register at about 20.5 million or thereabout. The 3.5 million national identity card holding citizens are no doubt significant, and had they registered as voters, their choices at the ballot would tilt the scales in final verdict on who becomes the country's 5th president, who sits in the 13th parliament, and the 3rd lot of governors. So what moral authority will these young people who ignored calls to register as voters and participate in electing leaders in August have should the wrong leaders end up in office? A bad leader is not elected by good people who don't vote. Thomas Jefferson said, "We do not have government by the majority. We have government by the majority who participate." Yes, young people bear the brunt of misrule. They suffer more from mismanagement of public resources. They are the long-term victims of bad policies. But they can't just lament. They must do something. And that thing can only be done at the ballot. They can only do it if they register as voters. As a democracy, decisions on who governs our country can only be made at the ballot by those who are registered as voters and actually turn up to vote. Finally, numbers do not lie. The 2019 census report indicates that there are 13.6 million Kenyans between the age of 18 to 34. Those below the ages of 18 are 21.8 million, while those above the age of 34 are 11.8 million. This means ours is a youth-heavy country. In the 2017 voter register, over 10 million voters out of the total 19.6 million were between the ages of 18 to 35. This means electoral decisions on who manages this country are in the hands of the country's youth. But what are they doing with this potent weapon? Dear young men and women, I have a simple message for you. Morning will come whether you set the alarm or not. The president, that is the next president, governors, members of parliament and MCAs will be elected whether you participate or not. Should the minority end up having their day because the majority decided to stay away in protest, the youth will have only themselves to blame. That's my punchline.
The campaign trail is heating up, and whilst the politicians have spent a considerable amount of time throwing barbs at each other, there was one statement that caught my attention, and that is the proposed scrapping of the competency-based curriculum. That has been the call by principals of the Kenya Kwanza Alliance. In a set of tweets as well, the ANC claims that the rollout was rushed and without adequate consultation. They say that should they win the election in August, that they will scrap it. Now, depending on how you feel about the curriculum and which side you support politically, you will either agree with this or be alarmed by the statement. Granted, the curriculum has had its teething problems. Parents are still coming to terms with their increased involvement in their children's education, including the rising cost of material. Some educationists have also raised questions with the entire system itself and whether it is fit for purpose. So there are no doubt questions around it, even as we go along with its implementation. But I think it is a very important statement, considering that it is coming from one of the leading political formations in the country that stands at least some chance of winning the election in August. Also bearing in mind that 8 million children are now enrolled in this system and that the first cohort are set for a major transition into junior secondary school very soon. Millions of shillings and man-hours have been spent in building classrooms, training teachers and design of the curriculum and printing of teaching material. And this is why the proposal made at a campaign rally must not be taken lightly and must be put in context, as it has the potential to affect the welfare of millions of children. So we must interrogate a few issues. If we were to scrap CBC, what would we replace it with? Would we go back to the 844 system? Do they have a new system in mind? What does that even look like? Have they talked to experts about our education system in the country? And do they have some proposals? Proposals that we could interrogate? Considering that we have spent some time transitioning everything from our teaching material to the method of teaching and even just a general overhaul of the mindset of Kenyans, what would another possible overhaul look like? Are Kenyans ready for this? Are our school children ready? And if this second transition in as many years will happen, what is the cost-benefit analysis? Is that new education system so much better than the CBC or, say, even the previous 844, that it would make all types of sense to make such a drastic change so soon? It would be interesting to see if this matter actually makes its way into the manifesto of the Kenya Kwanza Alliance when they are done with the roadside declarations, to give Kenyans enough time to interrogate the issues. Because if, as they say, CBC was hurriedly rolled out, more time would be needed to go into this than just the 5 months we have left to the general election. If it was indeed hurriedly rolled out, would the answer really lie in hurriedly scrapping it? One would imagine that a number of experts have worked for years to come up with CBC. Wouldn't any new government keen on making evidence-based decisions take time to understand their logic? Wouldn't they perhaps convene a meeting of such experts to ask the questions before scrapping anything? I know this is that season, the silly season. But for heaven's sake, we are not going anywhere. We'll still be here even after the election. So how about laying all these plans in great detail and giving us time to digest them? Issues like Baba Care, social protection, economic models, they owe it to us. But a noisy rally is hardly the place to make policy pronouncements. And that's my take tonight.
Now, this week, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IEBC, staged a televised disciplinary hearing for Murang'a woman rep Sabina Chege over remarks she made a few days earlier in Vihiga County. Now, the Murang'a legislator is accused of allegedly suggesting that the election in 2017 was rigged and that the 2022 polls may also be tampered with. Of course, the matter is now with the IEBC, and whether the MP is guilty or not will be the Commission's decision to make. I'm, however, gratified and intrigued at the same time by this latest enthusiasm emanating from the electoral body. I'm gratified because the Commission has, for the first time in a long time, or perhaps ever, moved with speed to remind politicians that there is a referee in this game. I'm also gratified because this matter is playing out in the full glare of cameras and that the verdict will be the product of a very public hearing. And I hope this is only the beginning of many such sessions. But I'm intrigued by the sudden burst of energy at Anniversary Towers. Has the Commission only just realized that it has all these immense powers to summon the high and mighty of our politics? Where has it been all this while when the politicians have been making all manner of wild and sometimes extremely reckless statements on the campaign trail? In fact, how is it that the Commission has never reprimanded any politician for what are clearly premature campaigns? You see, according to the electoral calendar released by the IEBC itself, the official campaign period is scheduled to begin, get this, on May 29th, or simply put, a whole 3 months from now, which means that right now we should be enjoying all peace and quiet across the nation. Of course, that is hilarious because I don't know about you, but I don't remember when the campaigns really ever stopped from the last general election. The political noise, I dare call it that, has been grating at our ears for nearly 4 years now. What is IEBC to tell us about that? Put differently, what is this thing called official campaign period? And what is this that is going on now? If this is not official yet, what will happen from May 29th? The politicians coming to our living rooms, perhaps? Or maybe the bribes they give to voters will get bigger or the insults more obscene? Will they increase the number of choppers or get more border borders on their convoys? Maybe, but it would appear right now that the IEBC only has powers to, say, summon politicians when they talk about rigging. That is why I hope they will also be giving the country a chance to hear from the ANC leader Musalia Mudavadi, who alleged the other day that he got wind of an elaborate plan to steal the election just before he moved to Kenya Kwanza. He recounted how a powerful official in government allegedly told one of the Oka leaders that the election would be stolen in their favor if they joined Azimio la Umoja. Now, I bring this case up because rigging and claims of rigging are not to be taken lightly in this country. No one needs reminding how in 2007, 2008, this nation came so close to an implosion. And that was on the back of a disputed presidential election. In 2017, the country was forced back to the ballot after the presidential election results were nullified by the Supreme Court, citing what it called various illegalities and irregularities. Now, the IEBC should therefore take every word uttered about any possible rigging of elections with utmost seriousness. But the electoral body must go beyond that. You see, in the Bible, Jesus asked an intriguing question in the book of Matthew chapter 7, verse 3. He asks, and I quote, "Why beholdest thou the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but considerest not the beam that is in thine own eye?" In English, that question would sound like this: why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? You see, the IEBC can summon and grill all the politicians it wants. It can breathe fire and brimstone in the slightest noise from the campaign trail. But that will not be enough. First, it must apply the rules without fear and without favor. Secondly, and more importantly, the IEBC must now do a self-reflection and assure the country that all is truly well on the road to August 9th. The IEBC must tell us in no uncertain terms that the mess of 2017 is now behind us and that the election will be free, fair, and verifiable, regardless of what the politicians will say or do. That will be the greater duty to the nation. And to paraphrase the great T.S. Eliot, that is the only way the IEBC will end this with a bang and not a whimper. That is my angle for the week.
Very well, Joe. There's a gentleman here called Felix Alois Raj. He's saying, please ask Jamila to be sending me her memo.
Yes.
I volunteer to voice it. So, Jamila.
Coming soon.
Jamila, that is the memo from Felix Alois Raj.
Yeah.
And then there's a gentleman called Bernard Kiprop. He's saying, for him, the excuses by the young people not to register as voters is not so much like the apathy, because, quote unquote, the feeling that things have never changed for my older siblings and so won't change for me anyway is a tough one to come out of.
Yeah, indeed it is. Listen, it's been a great show. Many people asking about Jamila Mohammed. Jamila. Harakisha. We need you back.
There's a press conference.
Yeah, she should.
Jamila should be back soon.
She will be back very soon, and just as much as you miss her, we also dearly miss her here on the show, and she'll be back.
There's a quick one here.
Yep.
Blamwell Jururi, very respected journalist and senior of ours, actually believes that tonight in the kicker, I defended corruption.
It's called sarcasm font.
Dr. Joyce Nairo, I'm sure she's watching.
Yes.
Come on, Blamwell, surely.
She's my literature. She taught me literature at Moi University. Stylistic devices.
Sarcasm font. Yes.
We missed it.
It actually reminds me of Kwamchetsi Makoha as well. Do you remember his articles in the paper were always contrary. Like you had to read it. Yeah. Like you say, sideways, back to front, Yeah. I think that is something that we need to take a look at. All right, so guys, thanks for watching. It's a wrap. We shall see you again next week. Thanks for watching News Gang. Have a good night. Stay safe, everybody.
Right.
Enjoyment na a meal that's also a flex. The KFC Streetwise 2. 2 pieces of original recipe chicken and regular chips at 370 bob. Feed your flex with KFC Streetwise 2.
wako hapa. Wasanii mashuhuri.
Thank you very much.
Napenda kuzungumza Swahili.